Thank you everyone for skipping lunch on behalf of the future. Very short introduction. I'm an architect and I'm practicing principally as a town planner. I don't know how many years, maybe 45. And one of the things that I've learned is that they're very similar in the skill sets. But the difference is not scale, because some architectural projects are very large. It's not complexity, because some architectural projects are very complex. The difference is time. Architecture has to be finished within a very short period of time. And urbanism, what it has on its side, is a huge time span. And 45 years later, I can look back for the first time at our work and see what time did to it. It's been interesting. We believe that we do true urbanism in the sense that we invite as many people as possible to make decisions. We don't design all the buildings. We invite many architects, many landscape architects, many builders, many people themselves to build. And so it's organic. And as a result, the towns that we've built have actually behaved just like children, very cute at the beginning, really ornery and practically criminal teenagers, and then they fly straight afterwards. And then they have unhappy late lives, kind of frustration. And it's very interesting, and I could speak just on that, like how these virtually, even the most beautifully built utopian communities, how they end up being unhappy in the end, how they have ended up being unhappy. And that is probably what obsesses me the most at the moment. I'm not going to speak about that, but what obsesses me now is the Homeowners Association and how it's the software of community that doesn't work. Our hardware worked really well. Developers made money, buyers made money, lots of jobs created, great craftsmanship, a lot of physical happiness, and not so much, with the very, very tight homeowners associations, the inability to keep up with the future. There's a lot of dysfunction. By the way, it's not the fault of our communities. The entire nation's having a kind of similar problem. So right now, what I'm thinking the most about is governance. How do we govern these things in the future? And the HOA is a beautiful platform to design a government. But I'm not speaking about that. I'm also doing a lot of thinking about infrastructure, long-term infrastructure, as our projects get bigger and bigger. Practically, we have projects the size of Manhattan. One of them twice the size of Manhattan. So we're observing that kind of stuff. There's all sorts of things that have to be rethought that I look back in retrospect. But I want to speak about two today. One is marketing and the marketing of the future. By the way, I sound weird because I'm talking about the future. Okay? The present is the distortion field. If you're a builder now, you know more than I do. I live, hopefully, ideally 30 years ahead, a whole generation ahead. I can only manage 10 or 15 years. But I am thinking about the future very thoroughly. So what you hear about will seem a little, I don't know, I think it'll make sense because I'm a conservative guy, but I'm still thinking about the future. And because you guys, this is principally a builders conference, not an architects conference, not an urban planning conference, I selected two topics. One was marketing, particularly green marketing. And the other one is 6 years ago, I made a lecture. I realized that the single most difficult problem that we face is affordable housing. And after a lot of failure, I realized that the only really affordable product is a mobile home. Okay, I just got backed into it. No tech worked out. They had advantages, but none of them saved money. The mobile home saved money quite a lot. However, the mobile home had a cultural problem. Yes, $50 a foot at the factory door, but nobody wants them. Right? So it's not a technical problem, it's a cultural problem. And I addressed the cultural problem 6 years ago here. 6 years ago, and I said, how do we turn the mobile home into something superbly sexy, actually, instead of associated with the losers of society, or people have excuses for living in them, but generally it's not cool. And how do we turn them into something sexy? And my first time out, the IBS commissioned 3 model homes from us, and we managed to build 2. And you might remember them. And one of them was actually bought by the president and owner of Driscoll Strawberries as a guest house. It's not an exact poster child for affordability, but it's a poster child for really cool, because this guy had choice. I didn't expect the end of that story, but that's what happened. But in the process of getting it to California, which is where he lives with his strawberries, I realized we were shipping so much air. The thing had to cross the Rockies. It was a double wide. It was unbelievable. The amount of effort that it took to put it on something and carry it and everything. And one of the things I want to talk about today is how do we prefabricate that which needs prefabrication so you don't ship a whole lot of air. You ship what you need to ship. You factory what you need to factory, and then everything else is locally built, which is much lower grade labor. I want to show you that because that's different from 5 years ago, in which for a short time I was known as the mobile home man, and then COVID erased that memory from the culture. But that's what I was, and I was very, it's cool to be known for that, kind of street cred. So I'm going to tell you that, but before that, I want to speak about something which is truly in the future, okay? My wife, Elizabeth, and partner, she's an architect, for many years the dean at the University of Miami. I'm sure half of you were her students. You always come up and say, I was Liz's student. There's one there. But she teaches green building, and she has had, for 8 years she's done it, she's had to conclude that there's no way we're going to make it in climate change mitigation, which is to basically not hit the tipping points for mitigation, which is the causes of climate change. And the future is about adaptation. And adaptation is resilience. It's actually not the causes of climate change, but the consequences of climate change. And it's completely different. Triple glazing is for the causes, to prevent the causes of climate change. Okay, your own garden is the consequences of climate change. We all think it's the same because there's some overlap, totally different. Adaptation is not the same. By the way, just to give you a feeling, the red side, the blue side of this continent loves mitigation, right? The left loves mitigation, and the right loves adaptation. And you actually just, it's the same, it's very similar stuff. You just have to know who you're talking to. And so I began by developing a scheme on left, right, mitigation, adaptation, etc., and had it verified by Zimmerman Vogt, who are the very, very good marketing experts. And as they did the sociodemographics, they found out that there was other kinds of green responses. And then we had 3, and then he found another one, and then we had 4, and then we had 5. As of today, this is a pretty new talk. I've given this talk before with 3, 4, and 5 market segments for green. There's 5 and going on 6 market segments. And it turns out that the latest edition of a green market segment, believe it or not, is the best-selling community in the United States right now, Margaritaville. Margaritaville is a response to climate change. And that market segment is the party on market segment. They're not denialists. They know the world is going to end. And their perfectly rational response is to enjoy every day that they have. Don't confuse them with denialists. Okay? These are people who have been alerted to enjoy their life. And I think that is I used to say, oh, and that's the growingest market segment. I think it's already the largest market segment. And almost everything you see downstairs, I saw one teeny little green lecture in this whole conference, something about triple glazing. And then the sexiest bathrooms I've ever seen, practically Turkish luxury. I mean, the whole thing is late Roman downstairs. Okay? This is a late Roman operation. So you tell me that you're in an industry that actually believes in mitigation? I don't think so. But this is an industry that is totally into adaptation. The barbarians are at the gate. We have 1, 2, perhaps 3 generations. Let us make life wonderful. By the way, we needed to be reminded about making life wonderful. Okay, we needed to be reminded because we get distracted with a lot of stuff. There's a lot of distraction downstairs. And so I'm very happy that this market segment came up, and I want to show you what that's like. This is the second lecture, but it's got the cover sheet. So read about it. This is actually an operation of the IBS International, and you know the date. Okay, I had to put that on first. And now we're going to look at the other lecture, the marketing one, which unfortunately is trying to be sophisticated. So of course it's a technological failure. It's got marketing green. Okay, there are 5, as of today, there are 5 target markets. They overlay 66 socio-demographic segments. These are people who buy espresso, don't buy espresso. You know the drill. Okay? That's why there's so many bathroom taps and styles downstairs. It's because it's to meet the socio-demographic statements that are analyzed, okay? And they have names, okay? There is the ethicals, the ethicists. You need to know who they are when you meet them. There are the cool greens, okay? There are the greenbacks, allusion to the dollar, used to be called the greenback. There are the survivalists. There are the party-ons, okay? So I want to describe how they are, and I think you're going to recognize them. You will recognize that almost everybody here is probably 2 of these, because we're really sophisticated and open-minded. But most people are most people are 1, okay? But we're 2. So don't be confused. I think we have learned to spread our open-mindedness around. Okay, the presentation that you make varies according to these target markets, okay? But the environmental practices remain constant. And we already had 2 people leave, so I'm going to give you the short, okay? How do you sell a solar panel, which is on the roof, and generally looks bad? A lot of the tech is how do you hide it, okay? If an ethical person comes in, do the right thing, because the polar bears are deserving, because the South Sea Islanders are drowning in their little islands. You just do it and you pay for it. There are a lot of people who say, just do it. I know it looks like hell, and you pay for it. Most of those people are Lutherans living in Northern Europe, okay? Or perhaps Canadians, okay? And it has a lot of uptake in Denmark and places like that. You see it. All the green communities are in North Germany. It hardly sells any real estate here, okay? Because these people don't even want to have a new house. They've gotten there already, okay? So the second one is the cool greens. And the cool greens are people who, if it's really well designed, and the solar panel gives you a roof that goes like this as it faces south and west, and it's the coolest looking house, and it's got all the growies correctly on the west. If it's good design, they'll buy it. And it's very interesting. The architects are very design intensive about this. You see it. They're shaping their buildings. Now, the ethicals think that the cool greens are greenwash. Just to give you an intense thing. They actually don't even like each other. That's how different the market is. The ethical people, they say, that really doesn't work. That's bullshit. You shouldn't be building a big house in the first place. Greenwash, right? So you understand how strong these market segments are, that these people don't even like each other, yet you're still selling solar panels. You're just presenting them differently. Now, the third set is called the greenbacks, and the greenbacks are super American. These are the people, and every politician in the United States, Biden, everybody, always talks about the greenbacks. And the greenbacks say, it's good for business. It creates jobs. They don't even make in fact, it's weird when they say, when Biden or somebody else says, oh, the world is ending. That's not what politicians say. They say, we are bringing the jobs here. It's going to create a lot of jobs, right? Or it's going to save money. You buy a house, it's going to save $80 a month on electrical bills. Don't give them, that's all they need to hear. The greenbacks just give them the business argument. We love them. And it's the political one. And the political one in this country. In Europe, they're actually being ethical. Okay, but in this country, it's just a business argument. And you can sell that to anybody. $80, I save $80, that's great. I saw a presentation that actually was suicidal that said, it costs more, but it's worth it. Go to Denmark. Because that ain't gonna work here. It's gotta cost less, or it's gotta look cool. Get it? Okay, now the fourth segment are the survivalists. Now, these are not the communists are coming survivalists, single out there with the AR-16. They're community-oriented. Okay, it's the community is what gives resilience. It's actually the new urbanist argument. We all need each other, right? That walled city of the Middle Ages, which we love to visit, that walled city had a duke and had a stable hand and had a soldier and had a milkmaid. Okay? High, low, rich, poor, many specialists. In that wall was an entire society, and that's what made it resilient. Our walled communities are pathetically fragile. Yeah, we got the wall, but everybody's rich, and nobody knows how to milk a cow. You see what I'm saying? So don't confuse the new communities, which have to be exceedingly diverse. Okay? Some young men, or women in the case today, that know how to hold a rifle. And some old person that knows how to be wise and adjudicate an argument. You need everybody. It's very different, okay? The walled community, actually, the diverse walled community, I believe, at the level of the block, at the level of the neighborhood, and at the level, perhaps, it's turning out of the nation, is making more sense. And it's not the old wall community of the stupid gate, which we used to call the walk-in, drive-out community when you stole the car. The party-ons, okay, how do you talk to the survivalists? Remember, we're selling a solar panel. How do you sell them a solar panel? You say, oh, have you noticed that there are brownouts and blackouts? Just bridge, don't you want to bridge the blackout? That's how all the solar panels are sold in Florida. Because when we were hit with hurricanes, it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks out of business without cold food, without fresh food. And our office has that stuff exclusively so that we don't have to close down for 3 or 4 weeks when the hurricane comes. So the solar panel is that. Now, the last market segment has nothing to do with the solar panel. Okay, you just don't bother. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them because Margaritaville in Florida looms very large. Just north of Seaside, which is the poster child of my career all those 45 years ago, they have 178,000 units permitted. Check that number. That's larger than any, I mean, it's incomprehensible. And that's what they have permitted. And it's not the only one. Okay? And they are dedicated to fun. Now, they're doing a kind of stupid job at it because it's pitched at a very low end, which all of you know is not very profitable. Okay? You know, it's not how you make money as a builder, it's pitching low end. And somebody needs to figure out how to pitch Margaritaville to a high end. By the way, poorer people and richer people, they all want to have fun. There's nothing different about them. It just gets pitched differently. Okay? So I'm going to talk about that. Okay, so the presentations vary according to the target markets, but the environmental practices remain constant. The ethicals are, okay, obviously Greta Thunberg. Okay? Do the right thing. And she's punitive. You're supposed to suffer for your sins. It doesn't sell one bit of real estate. They're the original environmental activists. They assume that nature is worthy of any sacrifice. Big mistake. Some people think the polar bear is an enemy species. They think of that humans harm nature. They don't think humans are within nature, but every human that walks into nature, stay out of the wetlands, stay out of the national parks, stay out of everything. They are moralists, evangelists, regulators. They tend to be anti-growth, so they exist in quantity, and they read inconvenient truth. Okay, their symbol is actually public transit, which most of the rest of us considered punitive, which I think is wrong. I think actually commuting in traffic is punitive, okay? But we're not in Germany, okay? So then the next is the cool greens, and you have all sorts of very cool people. This happens to be Jane Fonda, how she looks like now, still sexy. They prefer good design. This is where the architects thrive. Okay, the really cool looking stuff with the green roofs and all that. So it's very architectural. They will do the right thing as long as it looks good. I have a bamboo shirt, but it also happens to be beautiful. Don't sell them the old hippie rough cotton shirt that itches. That worked in the early, that didn't work very long, by the way. The granola that broke your teeth, that didn't work very long. Remember when we used to have handrails that you didn't sand? They looked like you would get splinters. Okay, that closed. No, it's really good design. And actually, Dwell is the pioneer of that. They eat organically as long as it tastes good. They will recycle if it's very convenient. Just don't make me go through any kind of negative experience. By the way, and I've seen fantastic recycling places in California associated with espresso bars. So you go in, throw your little thing in, and hang around for espresso under a tree. Fantastic, brilliant. They're all coming out to recycle, you're selling espresso, and you're actually fostering community. That's the kind of hybrids that are very interesting these days, okay? And of course, the coolest green is Tesla. There were many electrical cars before, but this is the first one that looked good, okay? Remember that. I have quite a documentation of electric cars. You wouldn't want to be seen in them. And that's the problem. You don't want to be seen in a house with solar panels like this, but you want to be seen in a house with solar panels like that and a roof that takes off from the ground, spirals and lands, which I'm not kidding is what they do, okay? They can distract us with ineffective solutions. That's the problem. Ethanol is a very elegant solution that does very little, okay? The greenbacks are Al Gore, who has become fantastically wealthy, promoting this stuff, like he's running a mafia operation, essentially. You pay me and I'll certify you that you're green. By the way, LEED is not too far from that. Okay, like the amount of sort of bureaucracy and pay for the certification thing is really quite interesting. So those are the greenbacks. I spoke already about them. They tend to prefer gadget green, high tech. By the way, Seaside is a fantastically green community. And there's a whole fantastic lecture on it. Seaside is a pioneer green community. And every green technology we did because it cost less. Swales, the whole show. It's so funny. We're just trying to save money. And now they're telling us that it costs more to do it. I said, what? That's the high-tech bias. It's the high-tech bias because you can't actually make money on low-tech. You can't sell certification, okay? Have you seen the performance of a really good curtain instead of triple glazing? Every European knows that. Just a really thick curtain, beautifully made. Get LEED to certify a curtain. It doesn't work. And there's a movement called, now it's very important, and you should get the book called The Original Green. And it's actually all about the way that our ancestors who had no money to waste and were smart, no money to waste at all, no subsidies, nothing. And they still had to be warm and they still had to be like us. So I think there's a lot to be said for low-tech green. It's coming. Even LEED is beginning to certify bale houses and things like that are very low-tech. Okay, they're very good politics, though, the greenbacks. Okay, and of course, this is the symbol, this beautiful machine. I don't see how anybody objects. They're so beautiful. But the fact is that all the farmers are making a lot of money on it. Everybody's making money on this. Okay, from the farmers on. It's very highly distributed. The survivalists are interesting. And Jim Kunstler wrote the original book called The Long Emergency that packaged it all together. It's a book that's actually 10 years old, and it looks like it was written yesterday. He's very good. He's a little too pessimistic now, but in the end, and I need to talk to you about this. Everything, what they're forcing us to do, the survivalism, is the communities we want anyway. The communities where you can walk. The communities where the kids can go to school. The communities where actually the outdoor space is as important as the indoor space. The community where the fresh food is prized. The community where shopping is not the way to get people to be in public, but actually gathering together to discuss the tomato crop, or to take the strawberry crop and turn it into jam, which increases the price. And so you gather around agrarian urbanism, okay? You send the kid out to get dinner in the pond, the stocked pond. Hey, say, kid, 5-year-old, you're responsible for dinner tonight. Here's the stick, go get it. Okay, you're bringing dinner, like that kind of thing. One of the most pathetic things about the new urbanism, which is what I was involved with, is how hard we tried to get shops, tons of shops, not useful shops, but shops that sell coffee, shops that sell essentially bullshit. We created a public realm based on spending money. There was no place to sit without spending money. Imagine that we actually got called in, because that's the only way we could even think of getting Americans to come out of their houses and meeting. And we pushed that so hard. Consultants right and left, subsidies right and left. We got to get them. We would photograph people in main streets. That doesn't make any sense. You can't actually have a public realm based on $6 coffee. And that was our brilliant idea for 3 decades. Think about actually how you have to gather to be resilient. The many excuses you have to come together to create a society that is actually resilient, that you have to meet to deal with problems, but also the opportunities. And actually, for me, my great aha moment was when I heard that only 14% of the people who live in golf course communities play golf more than once a year. It's just selling expensive real estate, and that you have to pay into that. Do you know what the budget is of a golf course community to maintain that stuff? It's astronomical. You know what you can pay? Whole crews of Central American immigrants to help you grow food, which looks very nice, but it also, you gather for the emergencies of the beans are ready today. Everybody out there picking them because you only have 2 days to do it, okay? And the strawberries are in. We've got to can them, turn them into jam. The whole idea of the barn being, rather than the clubhouse, being the center of social life in a very complex way. You dance, you meet there for the harvest, you meet there for gatherings. Instead of these ever more slick, we're just escalating the clubhouse. I just don't understand how developers think that golf is a brilliant idea. You take 120 acres out of your saleable land, and then those damn things now cost $25 million. Oh, what a genius. Who came up with that genius idea? For people that hardly play golf until they pay for the views. No, it's because in the absence of anything else. Because they'll also pay for an orchard, they'll also pay for a vineyard, they'll also pay for strawberries. And it's this, and you say, nobody's going to pick the strawberries. I know. Nobody mows the soja grass either. Okay, there's a huge budget for making things grow. And it's not for everybody, including me, but it's for a lot of people. If you just realize that gardening is the actually number one hobby in the United States, golf isn't even close. Gardening is, you can see actually the potential of a community based on agrarian urbanism. By the way, agrarian is the society that grows food. Agricultural is the growing of food. So there's a difference. You design, as a designer, you design the community that grows the food. The community, not the food. Don't read the book on seeds or soil, okay? Just figure out how you get everybody to participate in this. From the picking of apples in an orchard to the window box in the apartments. So instead of this ornamental stuff that's dripping off all the buildings now, what about a window box that an older person can actually participate in that? So anyway, that's just a little aside on what that might be looking like. And of course, the community farm is the poster child. And then, of course, let's talk about the party-ons. I want to emphasize, okay, this is a very important guy. James Lovelock is I forget who our NASA guy is, the US fellow who, Hansen identified climate change super early 60s. He's our American Columbus in climate change. This is the Brit. The British guy is James Lovelock. He died at 100 this year. And about 3 years ago, he made this statement, which is on the headlines of the British newspapers. This is the guy who identified climate change first. Gaia theory, everything. The grandfather, he said, this is a headline from The Guardian, enjoy life while you can. In 20 years, global warming will hit the fan. Of course, he was ousted and canceled right and left. But look at this guy doing it. And he's just thinking ahead of what's going to happen. Now, what we haven't got is what I call the Pearl Harbor moment, in which we say, oh, we are screwed. because we're coasting along. It's really pretty nice. What a beautiful day. It's still beautiful most of the time. And the humans are not actually absorbing this. But something might happen. The analogy is, we knew the Japanese were behaving that way, incredibly aggressive all over Asia. And we were a pacifist nation. We were absolutely pacifist nation. Pearl Harbor happened, and all the pacifists by name volunteered for the Army and Navy the next day. Okay? It was that flip. I don't know what it's going to be, what it's going to take, but some moment, perhaps it's 2030, when actually the international, what's it called? The ICPC, I don't know, the people who meet every year and say, and they have said we have to be at 50% of carbon net zero by 2030. They gave a date. And then they said we have to be at zero by 2050, and the Chinese negotiated 2060. Okay? Every single metric is going in exactly the wrong direction. It's confusing because they'll tell you the Chinese canceled 200 coal-powered plants. You can read that headline, and actually the Greens will say, no, it's not as bad as you think. The Chinese canceled 200. Okay, the underlying fact is that they're building 800. They were going to build 800, now they're building 600, and a lot of them are in Africa. The other thing that happened, which I think should have been the Pearl Harbor moment, is we realized that Russia, all it sells is oil. It doesn't have a plan B. Okay? And then China needs the oil, and India cooks with coal. And we say, what are they going to do? Cold food? What are you going to do with all those Indians? Cold food? Oh, no coal anymore. Do you know how many people are signed up for this? Not a single country in Latin America is signed up for mitigation, not one. Africa? What a joke. They can't wait to actually get into their minerals and to become rich. We have to see what's happening. I believe that because a clear line has for the first time been drawn at 2030, which is to say, if we're not at 50% at 2030, 50% of net zero, we hit the irreversible tipping points, which is no matter what we do after that, the ice melts, the water warms, and the whole system starts rolling. That might be the Pearl Harbor moment. Okay? For me, it's about as clear as can be, 2030. That's a date that I tell my clients. 2030 is the Pearl Harbor moment. There's going to be a pall. By the way, the day will be a nice day like this one, which is going to wake up and say, oh my God, that's so beautiful. That doesn't matter. There has to be a psychological thing, and it might be 2030. It might be. The party-ons, as I said, are people. They're realists who accept, oh, by the way, they're realists who accept the reality of climate change. They're not denied. They conclude that the tipping points will be reached. The solution is to enjoy whatever days they have left. You should actually give a chance to a young person. I've learned by doing public process that if you take certain positions, for example, there's a problematic position nobody wants to get near, and you take the position further off, that people will then tell you the truth. I, of course, prefer to speak to teenagers by far because they're my clients, right? It's really honestly, when I look at an 18-year-old, I'm thinking of a 38-year-old. That's what an urbanist does. What is the 18-year-old going to be like? And I find most of them, actually, when you say, what are your friends doing? What are they doing about this? They're having fun. They actually are party-ons. The ones I meet are party-ons. Now, of course, I come from the South and the red states and everything, but they're by no means stupid people. By the way, I think the young are the same everywhere now. They're not like, the separations are disappearing. And how do we do this so it's not gross, like Margaritaville? Just look at their ads. It's terrifying. Slightly overweight people bumping bellies in a pool. I swear, come here. Okay, you might think that's very profitable, but I'm not going to design that stuff. In any case, they own the market. Now, I just want to warn you about one thing. The denialists If somebody these days doesn't believe in climate change, just don't bother. Everything possible has been done to convince them, all the evidence and everything. There are a lot of people like this guy. Don't try to, they walk into the sales office, just skip them. Okay? They're not going to do anything. They're willfully ignorant, cynical, or indifferent. Forget about it. And of course, the McMansion. One of the things that we need to start doing, I don't think houses are going to get small fast enough, but they sure as hell should start looking smaller, less aggressively everything. Aggressively what? Everything is aggressive about them. And I think that there's an architecture that needs to develop that, by the way, all of our clients, just one thing that is actually was a great, I only have 5 minutes, that is a great insight to me. We designed Seaside in 1980. It was imitated very quickly, but within 5 years, and they all look like Seaside. The colors, the porches and everything. And it was 10 years before we got another commission. And it was a very smart developer. And we designed something that looked like Seaside. And he said, no, I don't want it to look like Seaside because then it's a second-rate Seaside. It was an incredible aha moment. And by the way, Seaside is surrounded by second-rate Seasides. People that will tell you, oh, I missed the window. I can't afford it. I had to buy watercolor. And I said, don't worry about it. It's great. Watercolor is great. Yeah, but I should have had the Mercedes instead of the Lexus. So this guy alerted me, do not actually imitate. You have to pioneer. And so the second one we did 10 years later, super interesting community called Rosemary Beach. Rosemary. And Rosemary actually is not like Seaside at all. It doesn't have pastel colors. It has dark saturated colors. It doesn't have porches. It has balconies. It doesn't have towers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, it is fully as good as Seaside. Same class act. And then by that time, we learned our lesson. And Alice, 10 years later, is the white community. All courtyard buildings. And actually, they all, in a way, corrected. They're 10 years apart. Alice is 20 years old now. And they are very interesting seen together. They're not that interesting alone, but together, they each correct the deficiencies of the prior one. Now, of course, Alice has its problems too. Tremendous problems, none of which is... They're selling small lots for $3 million without a view. Okay, it is just the tops. That's not the way we keep score anymore. Okay, although it is the way many people keep score. And that's how we keep score. And it's important to say that. But the search for the next one is what we are doing now at DPZ. And what happened is that our office, we have 4 younger partners, super competent, and we gave them the office in exchange for staying on for only doing R&D, research and development, right? Client comes in, I want new urbanism. These are the 4 competent partners. I have an aside in which I am literally paid to see what's next. And I've been doing 7 years of that now. And we've actually reversed the situation at the office in which our clients come in, we're very responsive. Because as urbanists, they know the end user, they know the market. We're very responsive to clients, but we realize that they're not always asking the questions that we were asked 40 years ago that caused us to come up with Seaside in the first place. Like really open-minded. And so what we do now is I basically ask the questions that I think should be asked. And then we call potential clients and say, we got this cool idea. We got these cool ideas. Architecturally, I don't have time to show you the talk, but I would say that the way it's going after the mobile home experience is, for me, the cut is the stuff that requires skill, precision, inspections, and skill, precision, and licenses, which is plumbing, electrical, air conditioning, bathrooms because of tile, and kitchens because of cabinets. Okay, there's a lot of stuff. There's some stuff that absolutely needs to be built by people who know what the hell they're doing. And they need to be inspected constantly, and it's 70% of the inspections. That's what you build in the factory. And then you take it there. And by the way, it's not a bathroom here and a kitchen there, and it's all in one. And then the rest of the stuff can be built, in fact, by people of much less skill. It's walls, sheetrock. People can learn to do that in a week. So we have actually said our cut is the high-tech inspected stuff and then the rest. And what I was going to show you, I have a tiny amount. Okay, now I've got to switch. Okay, what I was going to show you is a module like that is actually, and by the way, just a couple of lessons we've learned. That's got bathroom. It's got all the stuff I mentioned before. What's interesting about it, and this is by way of warning, do not start with the cheap one, the little one, because then you have to design the big one. I was taught by an appliance, a dishwasher repairman, that actually no factory makes the cheap working parts, right? Because then they have to make the expensive one. They make the expensive one and use it all the way down to the others. They just put less bells and whistles on it. And so what I did, everything in that one is a luxury kitchen, luxury bathroom, everything. It's just detailed less expensively. The cabinets are cheaper, the appliances are cheaper. So one of the aha moments I had, the second aha moment I had, was that one, that you actually have to start with the luxury one and just do the specs less, because then you only have to build one. Because it's really the stuff inside the pipes, inside the walls and everything. It's all the same quality. The most expensive bathroom, the least expensive bathroom have the same workings. It's only the stuff in the surface that changes. So that's one little lesson that we learned after, by the way, this was not genius work. This is the 10th try, okay? And Fernando Payés here, who wrote the book and sold out on how to save money in construction, is actually our consultant. That's Fernando there, by the way. His book is sold out. And I want to show you one other thing, which is cool. By the way, in the house, there's a lot to this kind of house. This is the standard house. And it has a lot to do with Model T, with Henry Ford. What can I tell you about Henry Ford, okay? Just one thing to know this. Henry Ford, you see all these things on the right? All those body types? He didn't build that. He only built the chassis and the two-seater. Everything else was aftermarket. So the other thing that we did to add to all of this, and it's really pretty clever, I can't show it to you today, is we actually provide the Model T, and everything, including the aesthetic, is aftermarket. By the way, the house works. You can move in. You like concrete floors, you like this, you like sliding glass doors, you like 4-inch metal columns, fine. You can move in, it's great. Everything which is the pain in the ass aftermarket, you set it up for that. And actually the way you do it, you say, this house is, you show them the one with the arches and everything. Whatever you want, all the bullshit. And then you say, we deliver it this way and we give you back $10,000 and you can choose your own sub to do it. They said, wow, I got back $10,000. I learned that from my wife, who bought a Mercedes and they returned a big check because they didn't have any chips to make anything work inside the car. So here's $2,000 because you haven't got any. And it's all mechanical. She was very pleased. So you don't say, oh, and then you got to spend more money. You say, no, we give you back and you can be yourself. One of the things that's happening in Miami now, you may not have noticed this, people don't build closets anymore. They build a niche that fits the IKEA modules. And people are pain in the ass, the closet to build anyway, right? And you can dream about your closet, the drawers and everything, like you've turned something. You still give a hanging bar, okay? And by the way, the kitchens should be delivered nice looking, but no doors. You can still use the kitchen perfectly without doors. It can look pretty good. But you don't want to get into the 8 styles, okay? That kind of thinking is what Henry Ford did, which he's not known for that. Remember when he said the color is black? Very clever. One other thing I want to show you. Okay. So how are these things sold? By the way, this module works for every building type. Big houses, small houses, cottages, townhouses, apartment buildings, courtyard houses. The test is not the module, it's what can you build with the damn module, okay, which is everything. Okay? So, because you want to have only one module, the Model T. Remember, you can make a truck or a bus with the chassis. But this is the one thing I wanted to show you, which is the other transcendental idea. So, I don't know whether you bought a car lately, but you get this guy and you go in to the dealer and he says, let me build you your car. And so he sits in a computer, and this is the BMW version, which is actually the cleanest version. And it comes up and it says, do you want a sports car, a sedan, or an SUV? And you choose the sedan. And then they say, oh, okay. With the sedans, we have a 2-door, 4-door, 2-door, 4-door, 2-door, 4-door, which is the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 body style, right? There are 2s and 3s and 4, okay? So you choose the one, and then you say, we got these engines. 2.4, what is it now? 2.4, 2.8, 3.5, 4.5, etc. So when you buy a BMW, in this case, a 3 is a 3-body with a 3.5 liter engine. So they take you through this sedan, body type, and then motor type, and then the package. You see the package down here? They take you through this. So you're not saying, hey, we have 7 models, which, by the way, is cognitive torture. Napoleon could do 4 variables. So get your buyer to get their head around 6 variables. You know what they're looking for? What not to like. So they can eliminate, 6. I really didn't like the plant shelves on that one, Joe. Did you like the plant shelves in the bathroom? Okay, eliminate that. The poor architect has been trying to please the client, and the client's looking for things not to like. So you give him a decision tree that's very limited. And you can do that with architecture perfectly, just perfectly. You take them through, and then in the end, you give them the finishes, the degree of finish, which is what you see down there, the finished package, and then they actually build, and then you see your house. That is perfectly possible to do in a complex building called a compound. Have you noticed that rich people all live in compounds? Do you know that we all lived in compounds until basically the 50s? The Italian palazzo is a compound. The ranch is a compound. The Chinese hutong is a compound. The Philippines, everybody lives in a compound. The Arabs live in compounds. And what it is, it's the same number of kitchens and bathrooms and everything, but it's disaggregated into units. So our standard lot now is 1/3 of an acre. You can assemble your community, which is actually very adaptive. What do you need? I need my mother-in-law, I need the guard, I need the farmer, I need the school teacher, I need the person that, whatever. You see? Or I need my six college friends. So you sell one piece of real estate, and the person sells the other 5 for you. And by the way, they can also go into business renting the 5 units, which is how we populated this continent in the 19th century, with triple deckers and boarding houses and Polish basements. It was all about people that were put into real estate and in the rental business at the same time. That's how we did it. 30 million penniless immigrants were housed in this country that way. And that's one of the best ways to do it. Now, you can say the market's limited for that. Yes, sure. Okay. Let's say 15% of the market. But 15% of the market out of 2 million units is more than you can build, right? You want the niche. You absolutely want the niche. In some ways, when you come here to these IBS conferences, you want to know what everybody's going to do so you don't do it. Get it? What's the cool color next year? Oh, that mauve blue. Okay, that's the one I'm not doing. You see, because what's happening is we're all very smart. By the way, the information is absolutely accurate. That you're getting here incredibly accurate information. It's just that 600 builders are listening to the same information. It's like lemmings going over the same hill. Overbuilding is what kills us. All the correct information, you have to think for yourself. How do I get that niche? And this is something I heard at Seaside very early on. 2 kinds of buyers. I'm going to end with this. They walk in and you say, what are you doing? You're selling a smaller house for more money. You're crazy. They leave. The other person comes in and says, I have wanted to live in a place like this all my life. You always, when you have a good project, you're no longer being compared. Okay, it's yes or no. If people come in and say, we haven't decided, right? We're still looking at 3 or 4. Wrong. That's not the way to market, because then they will decide on the basis of price. Okay, you don't want to get into the price thing. You want to say, this absolute niche is what I'm doing, and I have to lose half the people that walk in, or 2/3 or whatever it is, but I own the others, and I can charge whatever I want. And that's always been the strategy of the new urbanist communities, is they have to be strong enough. The ones that don't work are the hybrids. You'll see weak new urbanist communities, pain in the ass, not worth doing, not enough value. It's because they are not decisive enough. They have to walk in and walk out, or walk in and stay, period. And that's the test, okay? Anyway, that's an hour. Thank you.